The greatest mystery you carry every day right now, as you read these words, something impossible is happening. Inside your skull, a 3-pound lump of soft tissue, barely more than the weight of a cantaloupe, is performing a feat that no supercomputer on Earth can replicate. It's constructing the entire reality you experience. Every color you see, every sound you hear, every memory you cherish, and every dream you've ever had exists nowhere but inside this silent, dark universe tucked behind your eyes. Here's the mind-bending truth. You've never actually touched the outside world. You've never truly seen a sunset or heard music or tasted chocolate. What you experience is your brain's interpretation, an elaborate simulation built from electrical pulses and chemical whispers. The you reading this right now is a story your brain tells itself, a pattern of neurons firing in the darkness, somehow giving rise to consciousness itself. Your brain contains 86 billion neurons, more than 10 times the number of people on Earth. If you tried to count the connections between them, called synapses, at 1 per second, it would take you over 3 million years to finish. This microscopic universe inside you has more connections than there are stars in the Milky Way. And the most astonishing part, it built itself. From a single cell smaller than a grain of sand, it grew into the most complex structure in the known universe. Tonight, we're going on an expedition through this hidden cosmos. We'll discover how your brain creates memories from thin air, why you dream in surreal narratives, how emotions color every moment of your existence, and why consciousness, that warm glow of being aware, remains science's greatest puzzle. This journey will reveal that you are, in the most literal sense, a miracle walking around in ordinary clothing. So settle in, let your thoughts slow, and prepare to explore the most fascinating frontier that exists, the infinite landscape within your own mind. The architecture of thought. Your brain's hidden geography. If you could hold your brain in your hands, you'd be struck by how unassuming it looks. Pale pink, wrinkled like a walnut, soft as firm jelly. It weighs about 3 pounds and could fit comfortably in your palms. Yet this humble organ is responsible for everything that makes you you. Those wrinkles aren't decoration. They're genius. By folding its outer layer into tight ridges and valleys, the brain packs an enormous amount of thinking tissue into a small space, like crumpling a map of an entire country into your pocket. This folded landscape is called the cerebral cortex, and it's where your highest thinking happens. Reasoning, planning, creativity, and consciousness itself. The brain is divided into distinct regions, each with its own specialty. The cerebrum, making up 80% of the brain, is split into 2 hemispheres, left and right connected by a thick cable of 200 million nerve fibers called the corpus callosum. The left hemisphere tends to handle language, logic, and sequential processing. The right excels at spatial awareness, pattern recognition, and holistic thinking. But this isn't a strict division. They work together constantly, like dance partners improvising in perfect sync. Within each hemisphere lie 4 main lobes. The frontal lobes, sitting behind your forehead, are your executive headquarters. They plan, decide, control movement, and regulate personality. This is where you weigh options, imagine the future, and choose your next move. Damage here can change who someone is, revealing how much of you lives in this wrinkled tissue. Just behind them, the parietal lobes process sensory information from your body. They tell you where your limbs are in space, what textures feel like, and help you navigate without bumping into furniture. At the back of your head, the occipital lobes are dedicated almost entirely to vision, transforming patterns of light into the vivid world you see. And above your ears, the temporal lobes handle sound, language, and memory, storing voices, melodies, and the emotional textures of your life. Beneath the cerebrum sits the cerebellum, the little brain. Don't let its size fool you. This tightly packed structure contains more than half of all your brain's neurons and coordinates every movement you make with astonishing precision. When you catch a falling pen or walk downstairs without thinking, thank your cerebellum. It's timing each muscle contraction to the millisecond. At the brain's base, where it meets the spinal cord, is the brainstem, the most ancient and essential part. This is mission control for staying alive, breathing, heartbeat, blood pressure, swallowing, and sleep-wake cycles. Unlike the higher regions that can rest during sleep, the brainstem never takes a break. It's the tireless foundation keeping you alive while everything else dreams. Threading through all these structures is an astonishing network of white matter. Billions of nerve fibers coated in myelin, a fatty insulation that lets signals travel at over 200 miles per hour. These are the brain's highways, connecting distant regions so they can collaborate instantly. The brain isn't a collection of isolated parts. It's an entire interconnected city, with information flashing along neural expressways at breathtaking speed. What makes this architecture truly remarkable is how seamlessly it all works together. Right now, your occipital lobes are decoding these words, your frontal lobes are interpreting their meaning, your temporal lobes are linking them to memories, and your cerebellum is keeping you balanced as you read. Dozens of regions are collaborating so perfectly that you experience it all as one smooth, unified moment of being you. The cellular symphony, how neurons create your mind zoom in far enough, and you'll enter a dense forest of living threads, neurons, the brain's fundamental building blocks. Each neuron is like a miniature tree. Long, root-like branches, called dendrites, gather information, and a single trunk, called an axon, carries signals away. There are 86 billion of these trees in your brain, packed so densely that a grain-sized piece of brain tissue contains more neurons than there are people in New York City. But a single neuron is never alone. Each can connect to thousands of others, forming a mesh of staggering complexity. The points where they meet are called synapses, microscopic gaps where one neuron ends and the next begins. Your brain contains over 100 trillion synapses. That's more connections than there are stars in 1,000 Milky Way galaxies. Here's how they communicate. When a neuron decides to send a message, it generates a brief electrical pulse called an action potential. This pulse races down the axon like a wave of dominoes falling. When it reaches the synapse, it triggers the release of neurotransmitters, chemical messengers that drift across the gap and bind to receptors on the neighboring neuron. If enough signals arrive together, the neighbor fires its own pulse, passing the message along. This happens millions of times every second throughout your brain, a dazzling relay race of electricity and chemistry dancing in perfect rhythm. It's silent, happens in darkness, and yet from this microscopic ballet emerges every thought, feeling, and memory you've ever had. Different neurotransmitters have different personalities. Glutamate excites neurons, keeping your brain alert. GABA calms them down, soothing the network into restful silence. Dopamine delivers motivation and reward, that spark you feel when something good happens. Serotonin balances mood, while acetylcholine sharpens focus. These chemicals are tiny, but their influence is vast. A few molecules can be the difference between calm and panic, boredom and fascination. Neurons get all the glory, but they couldn't survive without an army of supporting cells called glia. There are roughly as many glial cells as neurons, and they do far more than the old name glue suggests. Astrocytes, shaped like stars, wrap around neurons to feed them, clean up stray neurotransmitters, and maintain chemical balance. Oligodendrocytes wrap axons in myelin insulation, letting signals travel 50 times faster. and microglia patrol like tiny immune guardians, engulfing debris and damaged cells to keep the brain healthy. If neurons are the performers, glial cells are the stage crew, lighting, maintenance, security, working tirelessly in the background so the show can go on. Without them, the entire cathedral of thought would collapse. Networks that never sleep. The brain's hidden traffic. The brain's real magic lies not in individual neurons, but in how they form vast interconnected networks, living webs that constantly spark with communication. These networks aren't static. They shift and reshape with every experience, strengthening some connections while pruning others, building new pathways as you learn and grow. When neurons fire together repeatedly, their connections grow stronger, a principle famously summed up as cells that fire together, wire together. This is how learning happens at the cellular level. When you practice a piano scale or memorize a phone number, you're literally rewiring your brain, carving new paths through the neural forest. Beneath the chaos of individual signals, neurons often synchronize their firing, creating rhythmic brain waves. These oscillating patterns come in different frequencies, each linked to different mental states. Alpha waves appear when you're relaxed but awake. A calm, steady tide beta waves emerge during focused thinking. Quick and alert theta waves roll through as you drift towards sleep. Dreamy and soft delta waves dominate deep sleep. Slow, powerful drum beats. During REM sleep, when dreams bloom, waves become fast and chaotic again, resembling wakefulness. These rhythms aren't just background noise. They help organize the brain's traffic, coordinating timing so different regions can communicate efficiently. It's like traffic lights synchronizing so cars flow smoothly through a city. What's astonishing is how little you notice this constant activity. While you go about your day, billions of neurons are flickering in patterns, forming constellations of activity that bloom, ripple, and fade. Messages flash across white matter highways. Networks pulse in synchrony like breathing. All of it contained, all of it silent, miniature lightning storms in total darkness. The only hint of their presence is thought itself. That quiet stream of words, images, and feelings appearing in your awareness. Your brain is like a city at night seen from space, its lights winking on and off while the streets below remain familiar, ever-changing yet somehow constant, senses building reality. From scattered signals, every moment waves of raw data pour into your brain. Light particles hitting your retinas, air vibrations tickling your eardrums, molecules drifting into your nose, pressure touching your skin. But none of these are experiences yet. They're just signals, meaningless data until your brain interprets them and weaves them into the seamless reality you call the world. Vision feels instant, but it's remarkably complex. Light enters your eyes and hits the retina, where photoreceptor cells convert it into electrical signals. These travel through the optic nerve to the visual cortex at the back of your brain. There, different groups of neurons detect edges, movement, colors, and shapes. Only after this information travels to higher visual areas and merges with memory do you recognize what you're seeing. A face, a word, the pale blue of morning sky. What feels like direct sight is actually billions of neurons working in perfect synchrony, quietly constructing a picture for your consciousness to witness. Hearing unfolds with astonishing speed. Sound vibrates your eardrum and three tiny bones, the smallest in your body, which amplify the vibrations into the cochlea, a fluid-filled spiral in your inner ear. Different hair cells respond to different frequencies, converting mechanical ripples into electrical signals that travel to the auditory cortex. There, the brain dissects pitch, loudness, rhythm, and location, then reassembles them into something meaningful. A friend's voice, a bird's song, the hiss of wind. Smell works on a molecular level, Scent molecules land on receptors high in your nasal cavity, triggering signals that travel directly to the olfactory bulbs beneath your frontal lobes. Uniquely, smell bypasses the usual relay station, the thalamus, and goes straight to areas involved in memory and emotion. That's why a single scent can unlock vivid memories from decades ago. Your grandmother's kitchen, rain on dry pavement, a loved one's perfume. Touch is equally sophisticated. Your skin is dotted with millions of receptors detecting pressure, temperature, vibration, and pain. These signals climb through your spinal cord to the somatosensory cortex, which contains a mapped representation of your entire body. The brain can tell not just where you're touched, but how hard, how warm, and how textured, sometimes in less than a tenth of a second. Taste combines with smell to create flavor. Taste buds on your tongue respond to 5 basic flavors: sweet, salty, sour, bitter, and umami. But most of what you call taste is actually smell wafting up through the back of your throat. This is why food tastes flat when you have a cold. The brain doesn't just passively receive these signals, it actively weaves them together into a unified model of reality. When you see someone speaking, your brain matches lip movements with sound. When you bite an apple, you experience color, crunch, crispness, and sweetness simultaneously, even though these sensations are processed in different brain regions. Here's the startling truth. You never experience the outside world directly. You experience a careful simulation your brain constructs inside itself. Every sight, sound, scent, and touch is translated into electrical pulses, then stitched together with memories, expectations, and guesses about what should come next. It's an elegant illusion, so convincing that it's easy to forget the world you experience exists entirely within the soft folds of your own mind. Movement, the silent choreography. Every movement you make requires an intricate ballet of timing and precision. When you lift a cup, tap your fingers, or walk across a room, hundreds of muscles must contract in the right order, with the right force, at the right time. Somehow this happens so seamlessly it feels effortless. But behind the curtain, your brain is conducting one of nature's most complex performances. At the center is the motor cortex, a strip running across the top of your head like a crown. It contains a distorted map of your body called the motor homunculus. Hands, face, and tongue occupy huge territories because their movements require extraordinary precision. When you decide to move, neurons here send signals at over 200 miles per hour down through your spinal cord to motor neurons controlling your muscles. Supporting this is the cerebellum, the quiet stage manager of movement. Though it makes up only 10% of the brain's volume, it holds more than half of all neurons. It receives constant feedback from muscles, joints, eyes, and inner ears, comparing intended movement with what's actually happening. If something's off, if your foot slips or your hand wobbles, the cerebellum sends rapid corrections to keep you on course. This happens with such subtlety you never notice. When you walk on uneven ground, the cerebellum makes hundreds of adjustments every second, tweaking leg tension, arm swing, and head tilt to keep you upright. It's like having an invisible acrobat inside your skull, forever keeping you balanced while pretending not to be there. Even standing still is more active than it seems. Tiny muscles constantly contract and release, adjusting your posture based on signals from your feet, calves, and inner ears. You appear motionless, but inside it's like balancing on a gently rocking ship. These systems adapt as you practice. The first time you try a new skill, riding a bicycle, playing an instrument, your movements are clumsy because the neural circuits haven't formed smooth patterns yet. With repetition, the motor cortex refines its signals and the cerebellum fine-tunes timing, gradually turning conscious effort into automatic flow. Eventually, you can pedal, play, or dance without thinking. The brain has converted chaos into graceful routine. What's remarkable is how invisible this is to your conscious mind. You simply decide to move, and your brain handles countless details on your behalf. Signals leap through your nervous system like silent lightning, muscles obey, balance holds, and motion happens as if by magic. Every gesture, every step is built from this intricate dance of planning, timing, and correction. A performance so flawless you hardly realize you're watching it. The clock within. Your brain's sense of time deep inside your brain, just above where your optic nerves cross, sits a cluster of about 20,000 neurons smaller than a grain of rice. This is the suprachiasmatic nucleus, your brain's master clock, quietly keeping time for your entire life. Each neuron in the SCN runs on a roughly 24-hour cycle, with genes switching on and off in waves like microscopic tides. Together, they synchronize trillions of cells throughout your body, telling them when to wake, when to rest, when to release hormones, and when to repair damage. This cycle is called your circadian rhythm, from the Latin for about a day. Left in constant darkness, your internal day would drift to about 24.5 hours. To stay aligned with the outside world, the SCN resets itself each morning using light. Special cells in your eyes detect brightness and send signals directly to the SCN, nudging your inner timekeeper back into sync. The SCN then broadcasts its schedule throughout your body. It signals the pineal gland to stop producing melatonin, the sleep hormone, as morning approaches, and allows it to rise again as darkness falls. It influences body temperature, which dips in early morning and peaks in late afternoon, and cortisol levels, which help you feel alert. This rhythm runs so deep it touches almost every aspect of your biology. Your liver follows its own detox schedule. Your gut shifts activity based on when it expects food. Even skin cells divide more at certain times of day. Every cell has a tiny wristwatch, and the SCN is the time zone coordinator. When you defy this routine, staying up all night, skipping meals, flying across time zones, your internal clocks fall out of sync. This causes jet lag. The SCN has reset to the new light cycle, but clocks in your liver, muscles, and other tissues are still living in your old time zone, leaving you foggy and out of step until they catch up. Even your sense of morning or night isn't just based on looking outside. It's woven into your brain chemistry. As evening light fades, body temperature drops, reaction times slow, and thinking grows softer. By dawn, when sunlight strikes your eyes again, alertness sharpens and thoughts gather speed. These rhythms are ancient. Even single-celled organisms evolved primitive clocks to anticipate light and darkness. Your circadian system is their descendant, fine-tuned over billions of years to the turning of the earth. One of the oldest pieces of biological machinery still ticking inside you, sleep. The brain's nightly voyage each night as darkness settles and your eyes grow heavy, your brain embarks on one of its most essential journeys. It slips away from waking life and drifts into the quiet world of sleep, a carefully orchestrated cycle that restores your mind, repairs your body, and sweeps clean the clutter of the day. Sleep isn't a simple pause. It's a journey through distinct stages, each with its own purpose. As you begin drifting off, you enter stage 1 of NREM, non-rapid eye movement. Sleep, a fragile threshold between waking and slumber. Muscles relax, heartbeat slows, and thoughts slip from sentences into loose fragments. The brain's lights dim block by block. Minutes later, you sink into stage 2, where the outside world fades. Your brain produces brief sparks of activity called sleep spindles, which help lock away new memories, filing the day's experiences into long-term storage. Then comes stage 3. Slow wave sleep, the deepest and most restorative phase. Brain waves slow to long, sweeping delta waves. Breathing becomes steady, muscles completely relax. This is when your body releases growth hormone, repairs tissues, and strengthens your immune system. It's also when the brain clears waste. Throughout the day, Neurons produce metabolic byproducts that build up between cells. During slow-wave sleep, support cells shrink slightly, expanding these spaces, and cerebrospinal fluid washes through like a gentle tide, flushing away debris including beta amyloid, a protein linked to Alzheimer's disease. The brain literally takes out its trash while you sleep. After about an hour, something curious happens. Your brain begins to stir again, and electrical activity quickens. You enter REM, rapid eye movement sleep, where dreams unfurl in vivid color and motion. Brain activity resembles wakefulness, fast, chaotic bursts weaving through the cortex. Yet your body is paralyzed, a safety measure preventing you from acting out your dreams. During REM, the brain becomes playwright and stage crew, stitching together fragments of memories and emotions into surreal narratives. Dreams are often illogical yet emotionally powerful, blending the mundane with the impossible. No one fully understands why we dream, but many believe it helps process emotions, strengthen memories, and spark creativity by loosening rigid thought patterns. The night isn't a straight path. You cycle through these stages in repeating patterns about 90 minutes long. Early on, slow-wave sleep dominates, giving your body restoration. As morning approaches, REM periods grow longer, filling your final hours with extended dreams. By wake time, you've typically completed 4 to 6 cycles, each gently reshaping your brain. Memory depends heavily on sleep. While you rest, your brain replays patterns from the day, especially in the hippocampus, reinforcing connections. This is why studying before sleep helps retention, and why skills often feel easier after a good night's rest. Sleep doesn't just protect memories, it weaves them into existing knowledge, linking new lessons with old wisdom. Even emotions are reshaped. The amygdala, which processes fear and stress, becomes less reactive after quality sleep. REM sleep softens painful memories, letting you revisit them without the same emotional jolt. Sleep doesn't just restore energy, it restores emotional balance. The cost of skipping sleep is steep. A single night without enough rest can fog memory, dull attention, and make emotions unstable. After several nights of deprivation, the brain begins misfiring, slipping into brief micro-sleeps even while you're awake. Each night, your brain sets sail on its silent voyage, drifting through waves of slow rhythm and bursts of vivid dreamlight, cleaning its depths and polishing its memories. By morning, it returns from that hidden ocean, carrying you gently back to waking life, rested, repaired, and ready to begin again. Dreams, the brain's secret theater. When you drift into REM sleep, your brain becomes a quiet storyteller, spinning entire realities from thin air. One moment you're lying in bed, and the next you're flying through a glass city, or wandering a childhood street that no longer exists, or speaking to someone who's been gone for years. During REM, brain activity grows fast and chaotic, almost indistinguishable from wakefulness. The visual cortex flickers. The limbic system, especially the amygdala, becomes highly active, infusing dreams with intense emotion. Meanwhile, the prefrontal cortex, which normally keeps thoughts logical, grows unusually quiet. Without that steady voice of reason, your mind wanders without restraint, weaving wild connections and surreal narratives. Memories are the raw materials of dreams. Each day, your brain collects countless impressions that settle like dust in the hippocampus. During sleep, these fragments reactivate in unexpected combinations. A street you passed might appear stitched to your old school. Your friend's voice might emerge from a stranger's face. The brain isn't replaying memories. It's reshuffling them, creating new patterns like a restless collage artist. This explains why dreams have that curious texture, vividly detailed yet loosely connected. Visual and emotional centers are fully engaged, so scenes feel rich and alive. But logical circuits are dozing, which is why you rarely question impossible things while dreaming. Only when you wake does the strangeness strike you. Why do we dream? Several theories exist. Memory consolidation. Dreams may be the flickering side effect of the brain replaying and reorganizing experiences, strengthening useful connections and pruning weak ones, emotional processing. Because the amygdala is so active, dreaming might let the brain safely revisit difficult feelings, softening their sting for future encounters, threat simulation. Dreams evolved as practice for survival. Chases, dangers, endless staircases, echoes of ancient instincts to prepare for challenges, neural housekeeping. Dreams might be the byproduct of sorting and discarding the day's flood of data, like sweeping a cluttered desk creativity. By disconnecting from strict logic, dreams let the brain explore strange combinations it would never consider awake, sparking unexpected insights. The content may be strange, but the feelings are achingly real. Fear, joy, sorrow, love, all can bloom in dreams as powerfully as in waking life. Your emotional brain speaks in symbols rather than words. Telling stories your waking mind may not fully understand, but still remembers as meaningful. When you wake, dream logic dissolves quickly, edges melting like frost. Yet a lingering mood often remains, a quiet echo of emotions your brain was rehearsing. Dreams are like whispered messages passed from the hidden depths of your mind, fleeting yet powerful, most astonishing. This nightly theater unfolds entirely inside your skull. No sounds, no lights, no actors, only neurons sparking in darkness, weaving stories from the raw fabric of memory. Your dreaming brain is a silent playwright, composing tales for an audience of one. Memory, the mind's time machine memory, is the thread that ties your life together. The quiet time machine letting you walk back through invisible corridors of your own past. With a single thought, you can revisit a childhood street, smell dusty pages of an old book, or hear laughter from someone you haven't seen in years. But memory isn't a tidy library of filed records. It's alive, constantly rebuilt each time you summon it, shaped by the quirks of your brain. Encoding is the first stage. As you notice something, a face, a voice, sunlight's warmth, networks of neurons flash to life, transforming raw experience into patterns of electrical activity. Your attention is crucial. The brain is flooded with stimuli but chooses what to save based on what matters most. If something sparks emotion or feels important, it's far more likely to be encoded. Once encoded, memories must be consolidated or they'll fade like mist. The hippocampus acts as an air traffic controller, receiving fragile new patterns from across the brain and helping stabilize them. Over hours and days, especially during sleep, the hippocampus gradually transfers these traces to the cortex, the outer layer, where they can be stored more permanently. This isn't like moving files into a cabinet. It's more like planting seeds. As memories replay and reactivate, they grow new connections across brain networks. Visual details settle in the visual cortex, sounds in the auditory cortex, emotions in the amygdala. When you recall the moment later, your brain rapidly reassembles these scattered fragments, pulling them together into the seamless movie of a memory. Retrieval is where the time machine truly whirs to life. A cue, a smell, a word, a familiar place triggers the hippocampus to reactivate the pattern linked to that memory. Within moments, fragments stored across the cortex light up, and the past floods back. You don't just think about it, you partially relive it. But here's the catch. Memories aren't fixed snapshots. They're more like paintings touched up each time they're viewed. When you recall a memory, your brain briefly destabilizes it, pulling it from storage into an active state. While active, new information and emotions can blend in. When the memory is stored again, it carries traces of this new context, a process called reconsolidation. This is why two people remember the same event differently, or why your own stories shift slightly over time. Memories aren't faithful recordings. They're living, evolving stories shaped as much by who you are now as by who you were then. Forgetting isn't a flaw, it's a feature. Only meaningful or frequently revisited memories are maintained. Countless others quietly fade, preventing your mind from overload. By letting go of the trivial, the brain makes space for what matters most. Emotion has profound influence on which memories endure. The amygdala interacts closely with the hippocampus during memory formation. Strong emotions release stress hormones that boost consolidation, which is why intensely happy or frightening events stay crystal clear for years. Sleep is another silent ally. While you rest, your brain replays patterns from the day, especially in the hippocampus, reinforcing connections. Sleep doesn't just protect memories, it weaves them into existing knowledge, linking today's lessons with yesterday's wisdom. Even imagining the future draws on memory. When you picture something that hasn't happened yet, your brain activates many of the same networks it uses to recall the past, rearranging pieces of old memories into new combinations. So much of your identity depends on this delicate process. Who you believe yourself to be, your personality, preferences, life story is built from memories. Yet those memories are fluid, shifting quietly with each retelling. Memory is not just a record of who you've been. It's a living reflection of who you are and who, piece by piece, you're still becoming. Learning and plasticity. The brain that never stops growing. Your brain isn't fixed like a sculpture carved from stone. It's more like a living garden, endlessly sprouting, pruning, and reshaping itself as you move through life. Every skill you learn, every memory you form, every habit you practice leaves a physical trace within this garden of neurons. At the heart of this transformation are synapses, the connections between neurons. When you encounter something new, certain groups of neurons begin firing together. Their repeated activity strengthens the synapses between them, like worn footpaths becoming well-trodden trails. This is one of the brain's most fundamental tricks. Cells that fire together, wire together. As connections strengthen, signals travel more easily between neurons. Communication becomes faster and more reliable. This phenomenon is called long-term potentiation, LTP, the cellular foundation of learning and memory. Essentially, LTP is the brain saying, "This matters, remember this." LTP works like a subtle sculptor. When two neurons activate together repeatedly, chemical changes increase the sensitivity of the receiving neuron. The sending neuron may release more neurotransmitter, and the physical structure of the synapse may grow, forming new receptor sites. What began as a faint whisper becomes a clear, powerful voice. But the brain is also a careful gardener, pruning connections rarely used. This process, called synaptic pruning, clears away old or inefficient pathways to make room for new growth. In childhood, pruning is especially intense. A child's brain has far more synapses than an adult's, and many are gradually trimmed as experience shapes the most useful ones. What makes this extraordinary is that it never fully stops. For much of history, scientists believed the adult brain was static. But research has proven the opposite. The brain remains plastic, able to change and adapt throughout life. This plasticity isn't limited to forming memories. The brain can reorganize entire regions to take on new functions if needed. People who lose sight often develop enhanced hearing or touch as the visual cortex begins processing non-visual information. Musicians who practice for decades show enlarged brain areas related to finger control and auditory processing. Plasticity is partly possible because of neurogenesis, the birth of new neurons. The hippocampus, deeply involved in memory and learning, is one of the few places where new neurons form throughout life. These fresh neurons integrate into existing networks, offering new flexibility and capacity. When one pathway is damaged, after a stroke, for example, neighboring regions can sometimes take over its functions. This rewiring doesn't happen instantly, but with therapy and practice, the brain can recruit alternative circuits to compensate. The brain is not a rigid machine with single-purpose parts. It's a shifting mosaic, always ready to rearrange itself. This constant remodeling has a profound consequence. Every thought, every experience subtly reshapes who you are. Your daily habits carve grooves into your brain's structure, strengthening some pathways while allowing others to fade. Reading, solving puzzles, learning skills, exploring new places, all weave fresh circuits. Over time, the landscape of your mind becomes the echo of how you've spent your life. Learning, then, is not something that happens only in classrooms. It's the quiet background process of living itself. The simple act of noticing something new sets off the machinery of plasticity. Your neurons respond, your synapses shift, and your brain reshapes itself to hold the moment. This flexibility is why the human brain is so resilient. It allows you to adapt to challenges, recover from setbacks, and reinvent yourself when needed. Even if old paths crumble, new ones can be built. The brain performs all this work without ceremony. It simply hums along, shaping itself like a river carving channels through stone. The changes are slow and silent, but profound. The reason you can remember a face, speak a language, solve a problem, or play a song you once struggled to learn. You are not the same person you were yesterday, because your brain has been quietly rearranging itself with every experience. The map of your mind is redrawn each night, its roads shifting, its bridges reinforced or replaced. And all the while, it keeps building, keeps adapting, keeps preparing you for unknown days ahead. Emotions. The limbic system's invisible hand emotions might seem wild and fleeting, but beneath their surface lies an intricate network deep inside your brain. The limbic system. Among the oldest parts of your brain in evolutionary terms, this network quietly shapes every shade of feeling you experience. At its heart is the amygdala, a pair of small almond-shaped clusters nestled in the temporal lobes. Often called the brain's emotional alarm bell, the amygdala scans everything you see and hear for signs of danger. If something seems threatening, a sudden noise, a shadow moving where it shouldn't, the amygdala reacts instantly, sparking fear and triggering your body's fight or flight response in mere milliseconds, long before conscious awareness. But the amygdala isn't only about fear. It responds to any strong emotion: joy, excitement, anger, awe. It tags emotional significance onto memories, making sure moments charged with feeling are stored more vividly. A joyful reunion, a moment of triumph, the sharp sting of embarrassment. In this way, it helps your brain prioritize what matters most. Working alongside is the hypothalamus, about the size of a pea, sitting just below the amygdala. The hypothalamus links emotion to physical responses. When the amygdala sounds its alarm, the hypothalamus sends signals that increase heart rate, raise blood pressure, and flood your bloodstream with stress hormones like adrenaline and cortisol, preparing your body to act. The hypothalamus also regulates slower rhythms that shape mood, hunger, thirst, body temperature, and hormone release. These quiet adjustments can subtly color your emotional state without you realizing it. A drop in blood sugar can make you irritable. Warm sunlight can soothe you. Other limbic structures contribute as well. The hippocampus helps form memories and works closely with the amygdala to tie emotions to experiences. The anterior cingulate cortex monitors emotional conflicts and smooths reactions. Together, these create a hidden foundation for everything you feel. Emotions serve as vital survival signals. Long before humans could reason through situations, emotions offered quick guidance. Fear urged ancestors to run from predators. Anger spurred defense. Affection bound them together. Even today, emotions act like a fast, instinctive compass, pointing you towards safety, reward, and danger, often faster than thought itself. Emotions also sign meaning. Every experience is tinged with feeling, from delight to boredom to unease. This emotional coloring shapes how you perceive the world and remember it later. Feelings are the filters through which you see reality, tinting it in shifting hues. They also guide attention. When something sparks emotion, your brain tunes in more closely, sharpening focus. This is why you remember moments of strong feeling so clearly. The limbic system is whispering, "This matters. Pay attention." Despite their power, emotions aren't separate from reason. The prefrontal cortex, governing planning and decision-making, constantly exchanges signals with the limbic system. It can calm the amygdala's alarms, weighing emotional impulses against long-term goals. At the same time, the limbic system provides essential information about what matters to you. Thought without feeling is cold and directionless. Feeling without thought can be impulsive and chaotic. Only together do they create something human. Your emotional brain isn't trying to control you. It's trying to protect you, connect you, and guide you through a world too complex to navigate on logic alone. It speaks in waves of sensation rather than words. A quickened pulse, a flutter in the chest, a tightening throat. Emotions fill life with color, meaning, and connection. Without fear, there would be no courage. Without sadness, no joy. Without affection, the world would be cold and empty. Your emotional brain does more than keep you alive. It reminds you that being alive is not just about surviving, but about feeling. The social brain. Built for connection, your brain might sit alone inside your skull, but it's hopelessly obsessed with other brains. It spends much of its time trying to guess what they're thinking, predicting how they'll act, and imagining what they might be feeling. Humans are wired not just to survive alongside one another, but to understand and synchronize in ways that run far deeper than words. This social wiring begins with mirror neurons, cells that fire both when you perform an action and when you watch someone else do the same thing. If you see someone stub their toe, your mirror neurons echo pain-related activity in your own brain. If you watch someone laugh, your motor areas prepare to laugh yourself. Mirror neurons are quiet mimics inside your mind, constantly rehearsing the movements and emotions of those around you. This is why yawns are contagious, why you wince when someone gets hurt, and why you smile back automatically. Your brain isn't just watching people, it's simulating them, slipping briefly into their perspective. These fleeting echoes form the foundation of empathy, the ability to feel what someone else is feeling. But empathy goes further, drawing on a network called theory of mind. This includes areas like the temporal parietal junction and medial prefrontal cortex, which work together to imagine other people's thoughts, beliefs, and intentions. When you wonder why someone is upset or what they might do next, these regions spark to life, running quiet simulations of their inner world. Your brain does this naturally and constantly, weaving little models of other people from scraps of expression, tone, and body language. This social attunement is a core priority. Humans evolved as deeply cooperative creatures, dependent on one another to survive. For most of history, being cut off from the group was far more dangerous than facing wild animals. Those better at reading faces, sensing moods, and predicting behavior had huge advantages. Even today, your brain treats social isolation as an emergency. Loneliness triggers activity in the same regions that process physical pain, as if warning that something vital is missing. Social rejection raises stress hormones and sharpens sensitivity to threats, while social support soothes your nervous system and strengthens your immune response. Social interaction lights up reward circuits, releasing dopamine and oxytocin, the same chemicals linked to pleasure and bonding. These chemical rewards encourage you to seek and maintain relationships, reinforcing the invisible web tying you to others. Your brain doesn't stop at understanding others, it tries to align with them. When people talk, their brain rhythms subtly synchronize, neural oscillations rising and falling in similar patterns. Even heart rates and breathing can slip into sync during deep connection. It's as if your brain wants to dance in step with other minds. All this happens with startling speed. Within fractions of a second, your brain can decode a fleeting microexpression, detect hidden emotions, and track multiple social dynamics at once. You might feel like you're getting a vibe, but behind the scenes, your brain is running calculations worthy of a supercomputer. Even your sense of self depends on this social machinery. The brain builds your identity partly by reflecting others' reactions. Like a mirror made of many faces. From childhood onward, you learn who you are by seeing how people respond to you. The social brain is not just about understanding others. It's about becoming someone in relation to them. Your brain can also stretch empathy across time and distance. You can feel for a character in a book or cry over a stranger's story from centuries ago, simulating their emotions as if they were present. This ability has helped humans build vast networks of culture, art, and knowledge, linking countless minds together. Perhaps the strangest thing, this solitary organ sealed inside your skull is, at its core, built for togetherness. It spends its days guessing, syncing, and resonating with other brains, even though it has never truly met them. And it rewards you for doing so, flooding you with calm and warmth whenever you feel understood. Your brain might seem like a private world, but it's more like a glowing node in a vast constellation, forever drawn to the light of the minds around it. It's happiest when it's not alone, when it's humming in harmony with other brains, just as it was always meant to do. Creativity. Where logic meets imagination, creativity often feels like magic. A sudden spark, a flash of insight, an idea appearing from nowhere. But behind this mystery lies a quiet, intricate process relying on the brain's ability to wander, connect the unlikely, and weave logic with imagination. At the heart of creativity is divergent thinking, the ability to generate many different ideas from a single starting point. Where logical thinking seeks one correct answer, divergent thinking lets the mind scatter in all directions, exploring possibilities without worrying if they're right or wrong. Divergent thinking draws on an unusually broad brain network. Frontal lobes help break free from habitual patterns. Temporal lobes supply memory fragments. Parietal lobes mix sensory impressions. The limbic system sprinkles in emotion and motivation. Even the cerebellum contributes rhythm and timing. But this chorus needs a conductor. The brain's executive control network, centered in the prefrontal cortex. This network monitors thoughts, focusing attention, and organizing ideas. It's usually the voice of reason, filtering out what seems irrelevant. Yet in creative moments, it loosens its grip just enough to let unusual ideas slip through. This delicate dance between control and freedom is key. Too much control makes thinking rigid, too little makes it chaotic. Creative moments happen in the sweet spot where logic and imagination overlap, where the executive network and the default mode network work together. The default mode network hums during daydreaming and rest, like the mind's internal playground. It drifts through memories, emotions, and abstract ideas, making connections you'd never think to look for. This is why solutions often arrive when you're not trying. In the shower, on a walk, just before sleep, your brain is quietly rearranging puzzle pieces. This wandering state is gentler on the brain's filters. Usually your mind screens out irrelevant thoughts to stay efficient. But during relaxed daydreaming, the gates open wider, letting in odd associations and distant memories. Creativity often hides in these strange detours where logic would never think to look. Emotion also plays a role. Reward circuits, especially those involving dopamine, activate when you stumble on a promising idea. That little spark of delight encourages further exploration, building momentum. Even the brain's hemispheres contribute distinctly. The left helps structure and refine ideas, while the right makes broader associative leaps to unexpected insights. They're partners, not rivals. The spark usually begins with the right's wide-ranging leaps, then is shaped by the left's careful precision. Curiously, just before a burst of insight, the visual cortex briefly quiets, as if the brain is tuning out the outside world to focus inward. The prefrontal cortex also relaxes slightly, letting go of strict self-monitoring. This temporary softening may explain why ideas often arrive when you're relaxed, distracted, or sleepy. Once a creative idea appears, the brain shifts gears. The executive network ramps back up, testing and refining, pruning what doesn't fit. This is the less glamorous side of creativity, the slow, careful work of shaping inspiration into something solid. Creativity isn't a single flash from a hidden corner. It's a rhythm, a back and forth conversation between freedom and discipline, chaos and order. The mind drifts outward, gathers strange treasures, then returns to sort and shape them. This pattern repeats like waves lapping at a shore, slowly carving something new from the raw material of thought. The most mysterious part, your brain performs this dance without conscious effort. You can't force inspiration, only create conditions for it to visit. Enough quiet for your mind to wander, enough curiosity to follow detours, enough patience to let slow work unfold. Every idea you've ever had began as a faint spark in your mind's darkness, assembled by networks of cells that never see the world yet somehow capture its essence. The creative brain is a hidden conversation happening all the time, waiting for a quiet moment to speak. Consciousness. The greatest mystery, consciousness, is perhaps the strangest thing your brain does. All other functions are intricate yet somehow tangible, moving muscles, forming memories, regulating breath. But consciousness is different. It's the quiet glow that makes any of those things feel like something at all. Without consciousness, the world would be soundless, colorless, entirely empty. And yet this glow doesn't appear to belong to any single part of the brain. It seems to rise from the whole system working together, like light shimmering from deep water's surface. Your brain contains 86 billion neurons passing tiny electrical whispers. Yet somehow, out of this electrical storm comes the feeling of being you. Two influential theories offer intriguing glimpses into this mystery. Global workspace theory imagines the brain as a bustling theater. Countless unconscious processes work backstage, processing vision, storing words, monitoring the body. Most run quietly and invisibly. But when something needs attention, it steps onto the mental stage. The spotlight of consciousness shines on it, and information becomes available to the entire brain at once. In this view, consciousness isn't a place, but a broadcast. When scattered brain parts link together briefly, sharing information across long-range connections. You don't experience countless tiny backstage operations, only the few that make it to the spotlight. Consciousness is the moment when whispers become a chorus, loud enough for the whole brain to hear. Integrated information theory asks what kind of information structure could give rise to consciousness at all. According to this idea, consciousness emerges from systems that are both highly differentiated and highly unified. Each part must do something unique, yet all parts must influence each other in deeply connected ways. The theory measures this using a concept called phi. how much information the system integrates as a whole. Isolated parts with no connections would have almost no fee. A perfectly connected system where every part does the same thing would also have low fi. But a network like the human brain, where each region contributes specialized activity yet stays richly linked, has extraordinarily high integrated information. Neither theory explains exactly why these patterns feel like anything from the inside. They simply map conditions under which consciousness seems to appear. Both agree consciousness doesn't live in any single neuron or region, but in the way the entire brain weaves itself together. Awareness may be less like a light bulb switching on and more like a symphony emerging when enough instruments play in harmony. Even with these ideas, the mystery remains stubborn. Consciousness resists being pinned down, perhaps because it's the very thing doing the pinning. You use it to study the world, yet it's also doing the studying. This circularity makes it slippery, like trying to hold your own shadow. One of the most curious things about consciousness is how fragile it can be. It fades every night when you drift into deep sleep and returns each morning as if nothing happened. It can vanish under anesthesia and reappear as drugs wear off, like a lantern flickering back to life. Consciousness is also astonishingly selective. At any moment, your brain is bombarded by vast amounts of information. Light, sound, touch, limb position, organ churning, but you're aware of only a tiny sliver. The rest stays submerged, processed silently in the dark. Consciousness floats on top of a deep sea of hidden activity, like the visible tip of an iceberg. Perhaps this is what makes awareness feel so precious. It's the rare surface where hidden depths briefly break through. When something rises into the global workspace, or when enough information binds tightly together, the lights come on. For a fleeting moment, there's a sense of being not just processing the world, but inhabiting it, not just reacting, but knowing you are. No one fully knows why this happens or why it should happen at all. There's nothing in a single neuron hinting at the glow of awareness. Yet when enough join together, something wholly new appears, as if the brain is not only thinking, but watching itself think. A loop of self-reflection so intricate, it feels like someone is home. Maybe that's what makes it so compelling. Among all the brain's wonders, its precision, memory, creativity, consciousness stands apart as its most mysterious and most personal. It's the soft glow behind your thoughts, the silent witness to your life, and the only reason anything else matters at all. No one can say exactly how or why it appears, only that it does. Every morning when your eyes open, like sunlight spilling across the surface of your mind. The aging brain, growing wise through time. From the moment you're born, your brain begins an extraordinary journey of transformation. It starts as a whirl of raw potential and becomes something shaped, refined, and deeply personal. A living record of everything you've seen, felt, and learned. In early childhood, the brain is astonishingly busy. Neurons sprout connections at a staggering pace, forming trillions of synapses. This overgrowth gives young children their sponge-like ability to absorb languages and skills almost effortlessly. As years pass, the brain prunes away unused connections, refining chaos into efficient networks. By adolescence, the brain is still a construction site, especially in the prefrontal cortex, the region involved in planning, impulse control, and long-term thinking. This is why the teenage mind brims with creativity and risk-taking, powerful engines with untested brakes. Through your 20s and 30s, the brain settles into balanced rhythm. Many pathways are well established. The prefrontal cortex has matured, lending sharper judgment and steadier focus. Memory systems are strong, processing speed is quick. This is the brain at its energetic prime, both stable and flexible. By midlife, small shifts begin. Processing speed may slow slightly. Recalling names or retrieving words can take longer. The hippocampus may shrink bit by bit, and neurotransmitter levels can decline. Yet, even as some abilities dip, others deepen. The brain draws more on accumulated knowledge and experience, leaning on well-built networks. This is crystallized intelligence, stored wisdom from decades of living, and it can remain steady or even improve well into older age. One remarkable discovery: the aging brain never fully stops growing. For a long time, scientists believed adults couldn't produce new neurons at all. But research has shown neurogenesis continues in certain regions, particularly the hippocampus, throughout life. The rate slows but doesn't vanish. These new neurons weave into existing networks, supporting memory and learning. Another hidden strength is cognitive reserve, the brain's ability to compensate for age-related changes by recruiting alternative networks or finding efficient pathways. People who stay mentally active, socially connected, and physically healthy build more reserve over their lifetimes. It acts like a buffer, allowing the brain to function well even when subtle wear begins. Memory shifts with age, though not in feared ways. Episodic memory, details of specific events, can become less sharp, and forming new memories may take more effort. But semantic memory, facts, meanings, general knowledge, often remains stable or grows stronger. Older brains may take longer to retrieve a word, yet they often hold richer vocabulary and deeper understanding of its nuances. Even creativity takes new forms. Younger brains excel at rapid leaps and novelty, while older brains often excel at synthesis, weaving together distant ideas and seeing patterns others might miss. Connections within each hemisphere may loosen with age, but communication between hemispheres can actually increase, allowing broader, more integrative thinking. Emotion tends to mellow. Activity in the amygdala often declines with age, while connections between emotional and reasoning regions strengthen. Many older adults report feeling calmer, less reactive, and more focused on meaningful experiences. The aging brain gradually tilts attention toward what matters most, tuning out noise. Physical changes do happen. Brain volume shrinks slowly, especially in the prefrontal cortex and hippocampus. Myelin can thin, slowing signal speed. Blood flow may decrease slightly. Yet these changes are gradual, often unfolding so gently that their effects are softened by the brain's adaptability. Lifestyle has huge influence on this process. Regular physical activity boosts blood flow and growth factors, encouraging neurogenesis. Mental stimulation strengthens existing connections and builds new ones. Social interaction keeps emotional and cognitive networks active. Sufficient sleep supports memory consolidation and cellular repair. These habits help the brain age more gracefully, preserving flexibility and vitality. Perhaps the most quietly astonishing truth: the aging brain's resilience. Even after decades of use, it doesn't simply fade, it changes strategies. It leans on its vast library of experiences, recruits new regions to support old tasks, and adapts rhythms to match new challenges. While youth is marked by speed and raw capacity, older age is marked by subtlety, a shift from sprinting to gliding, from building to weaving. There's quiet beauty in this transformation. The young brain is like an unmarked canvas, brilliant with potential but empty. The aging brain is more like a tapestry, heavy with color and texture, its threads crossing in intricate ways only time could create. It may move more slowly, but it carries a lifetime of stories in every fold. Long after youthful speed has faded, the brain still hums with possibility. A reminder that even as the body ages, the mind can remain endlessly alive. When the brain misfires, resilience and care for all its brilliance, the brain is also delicate, a storm of electrical pulses and chemical whispers balanced on the thinnest of margins. Most of the time it performs with quiet perfection. But sometimes something goes wrong. Epilepsy is one dramatic example. Bursts of electrical activity sweep through like sudden lightning storms. Neurons, which normally fire in carefully timed patterns, begin discharging all at once, flooding circuits with signals. This can cause seizures, brief storms of uncontrolled movement, altered sensations, or loss of awareness, depending on where the electrical surge begins. Epileptic activity can arise from structural changes, neurotransmitter imbalances, or old injury scars. Yet, despite its suddenness, epilepsy is often manageable. Medications can calm overactive neurons, and sometimes surgery can remove the region where storms ignite. Many people with epilepsy live full, active lives, a reminder of the brain's resilience. Strokes move with quieter urgency. A stroke happens when blood flow to part of the brain is blocked or when a vessel bursts, cutting off oxygen and nutrients. Deprived of these essentials, brain cells can begin dying within minutes. Effects depend on where the stroke strikes. Speech may falter, movement may weaken, or vision may blur. The suddenness makes strokes dangerous, but the brain often surprises with its ability to recover. In weeks and months after, surviving neurons can reorganize networks, taking over lost functions through neuroplasticity. Therapy and rehabilitation guide this rewiring, helping the brain build new paths around damaged areas. Some conditions unfold far more slowly. Alzheimer's disease begins almost invisibly as abnormal protein clumps accumulate between neurons and twisted fibers form inside them. Over time, these disrupt communication and eventually cause cell death, especially in regions like the hippocampus, crucial for forming memories. Early signs are often subtle: misplacing objects, forgetting conversations, feeling more disoriented. Gradually, as more networks are affected, memory loss deepens, and thinking, reasoning, and language become harder to hold on to. It's a deeply human kind of unraveling, as if life story pages are gently lifted away by wind. Yet even facing such conditions, there can be resilience and clarity. The brain doesn't lose everything at once. Older, well-established memories can linger even as newer ones fade. Music, familiar routines, and emotional connections often remain vivid far longer than expected. These conditions remind us the brain depends on delicate balances of blood flow, chemistry, and electrical rhythm. Even small disruptions can echo widely, but they also show how much can be done to protect and support it. Caring for the brain is about daily habits that quietly guard its health. Regular physical activity boosts blood flow and nourishes neurons. Adequate sleep clears waste products and consolidates memories. Mental stimulation strengthens networks and builds cognitive reserve. Balanced diet protects vessels carrying life to every corner of the mind. Social connection keeps emotional and cognitive circuits active. There's something quietly humbling about how the brain can both falter and endure. It can seize, stumble, or forget, yet it can also heal, adapt, and find new ways to carry the mind forward. Even when damaged, it often refuses to give up its delicate spark. The possibility of misfires makes the brain's everyday steadiness even more extraordinary. Billions of neurons fire in perfect harmony as you read, breathe, think, and feel, moment after moment, year after year. The fact that this vast symphony usually plays on flawlessly is a wonder in itself. When it falters, it reminds us of the quiet responsibility of having a mind, to tend it gently, protect it where we can, and marvel at how steadfastly it carries us through the fragile miracle of being alive. The future. Opening the black box, the human brain has always been both the tool we use to explore the world and the greatest mystery we have yet to solve. For centuries, it was a sealed black box. Now, that box is beginning to open. Piece by piece, technology is allowing us to peer inside and trace patterns of activity in finer detail than ever before. One striking frontier is brain-computer interfaces, BCIs, devices that blur the line between mind and machine. Tiny electrodes placed near the brain's surface can detect faint flickers of neurons firing. Computers learn to decode these signals into commands. People who are paralyzed have used BCIs to move robotic arms with nothing but thought, guiding them to reach, grasp, and lift. These systems work by finding patterns, learning which neural signals correspond to particular movements, then translating those patterns into motion. At first, it takes practice, but over time, the brain adapts, reshaping its activity to control the device more fluidly, as if treating a machine as part of itself. Researchers are also exploring how BCIs might restore lost senses. Experimental implants have allowed people who are blind to perceive spots of light by directly stimulating the visual cortex. Work is underway on devices that could send sound directly to the auditory cortex for those who are profoundly deaf. Alongside these interfaces is the vast project of neural mapping, charting the brain's connections down to their finest threads. The human brain contains 86 billion neurons linked by hundreds of trillions of synapses. Mapping them all would be like charting every star and beam of starlight in a galaxy. This effort is sometimes called the connectome, a complete map of all the brain's wiring. Even a cubic millimeter of cortex contains thousands of neurons and millions of synapses. By tracing these patterns, scientists hope to understand how information flows, how memories form, how decisions emerge, and how diseases disrupt the system. Artificial intelligence is becoming a crucial ally. The sheer volume of brain data is far beyond what human minds could analyze alone. AI systems sift through this ocean of information, spotting patterns that would otherwise stay hidden. In a curious twist, AI is also shaped by what we learn about the brain. Many modern AI networks are inspired by neural networks, echoing how neurons send signals and adjust connections with use. The relationship has become a loop. We build AI from the brain's patterns, then use AI to decode those patterns, as if the brain is training a mirror version of itself to help solve its own puzzle. Yet even as our tools grow sharper, the core mystery remains. We can trace electrical signals and watch networks light up, but that doesn't fully explain how the quiet glow of experience emerges, why certain patterns feel like something. This lingering mystery isn't a failure. It's part of what makes the journey so compelling. The more we learn, the more new layers of complexity reveal themselves. Each answer opens further questions, and each glimpse only deepens the wonder. The brain is not a static machine waiting to be solved. It's a living universe, changing as we watch it, reshaping itself, even as we try to chart its shape. The future may bring astonishing breakthroughs, seamless interfaces, cures for once untreatable conditions, even ways to enhance memory or creativity. But it will likely also bring something quieter, a deeper appreciation for the strangeness and fragility of the mind. Knowing more about the brain won't make it less mysterious. If anything, it may make its mystery feel even larger, like standing on a mountain and realizing how vast the horizon truly is. And perhaps that's fitting. After all, this quest is unlike any other in science. It's not just the universe trying to understand itself or life trying to understand its origins. It's the brain trying to comprehend its own nature, a loop of thought reflecting on thought, a spark of awareness gazing into the darkness from which it rose. Somewhere inside your skull, billions of neurons hum with electricity. From their silent pulses comes everything you know, everything you remember, and everything you are. They're trying in their quiet way to understand themselves, a constellation of cells dreaming of the shape of their own light. Conclusion: the universe you carry, from the smallest flicker of an electrical signal to the vast glow of awareness, the brain carries you through the entirety of your life. It begins as a cluster of cells and gradually becomes a labyrinth of delicate networks, neurons branching like ancient trees, glia weaving between them to nurture and support. From these quiet biological whispers arises everything you know, everything you love, every thought that has ever passed through your mind. It's easy to take for granted this silent companion that never rests. Yet it is the most intricate structure known in the universe. We've wandered through its many realms, its architecture and rhythms, its senses and dreams, its emotions and memories, its creativity and curiosity. Each part revealed something astonishing, not just in function, but in how effortlessly it weaves into the whole. There are no sharp boundaries inside the brain. Its systems blend and overlap, constantly exchanging signals, reshaping connections, and rebalancing activity. It is never truly still. Even when you're asleep, even when you're lost in silence, it's humming softly in the background, holding you together. There's something humbling in that. Your brain has been working since long before you could speak or walk, long before you even knew you had a self. It kept your heart beating in the dark of the womb. It built your sense of the world piece by piece, shaping patterns from fragments of sight, sound, and touch. It learned to recognize faces, decode language, and conjure memories from faint traces of experience. As you grew, it kept adapting, pruning what you no longer needed, strengthening what you used most, bending itself like light around the shape of your life. And yet, for all its complexity, it is silent. There are no lights inside your skull, no voices echoing through its folds, no pictures hidden in its cells, only signals rising and fading like waves on a dark sea. Somehow, from this quiet ocean of electrical whispers emerges the feeling of being, the warm presence of consciousness that turns raw sensation into experience. Out of chemistry comes color. Out of motion comes meaning. It's an everyday miracle, so familiar it can be hard to notice at all. Even now, after centuries of study, we've only brushed the surface of how it happens. We can trace neural pathways, map brainwaves, and watch networks spark as thoughts form. But the experience itself, that simple glow of awareness, remains beyond full explanation. It's as if the brain is both the instrument and the music, and we can see the strings vibrating but not quite capture the song. And perhaps that's part of its beauty. The brain doesn't need to be fully understood to be wondrous. It has carried you through every moment of your life with unassuming grace, keeping you breathing while you dream, holding your memories while you wander, and quietly reshaping itself each time you learn, love, or change. It is the keeper of your past, the engine of your present, and the architect of every possible future you can imagine. All of it, your thoughts, emotions, creativity, sense of self, arises from something small enough to rest in your hands, yet intricate enough to contain galaxies of meaning. 86 billion neurons, each one flickering with possibility, each one part of a living network that somehow gives rise to you. So, as this journey comes to an end, take a moment to marvel at the quiet brilliance within you. The brain is not just an organ. It is the stage on which your entire life unfolds. The silent storyteller behind your every moment, the soft glow that lets you experience the world at all. Thank you for spending this time exploring it, for letting your own mind wander through the delicate architecture of itself. It has been a gentle kind of journey, not loud or hurried, but slow and curious, the way the brain itself often works best. Now, as your thoughts grow slower and the day falls quiet, you might let your own brain slip back into its softer rhythms. Let it rest, reorganize, and dream its secret dreams. It has carried you so far, it has done so much. Close your eyes, breathe deeply, and let it be still for a while. Good night.